Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the journey. And we are about midway through the summer at this point, and I had an opportunity to listen to a podcast of the first, a particular woman who was the first uh, fighter pilot in the Air Force, and some of the things that she was talking about, not only being a pioneer in her field, um, but she talked about what allowed her to get to that position, to being the very first uh, uh, jet fighting jet, a pilot for fighting jets. It was an F-14 that she flew. She made it very clear that it wasn't only on her uh, only on her achievements did this happen. There was many women um, prior to her that uh, paved the way for her to be the first. I thought that was extremely beneficial. When I think of uh, some of the different things that I've had success in, regardless if it was um, football and wrestling when I was younger, or in bodybuilding later on, or as a therapist, or now in business, that there was individuals prior to me who had not only invested time and energy into me, in training me, preparing me, challenging me, but there was many individuals that um, had opened up doors by walking through them themselves, which then made it easier for me to walk through. Um, there was very few in the Rockford area uh, licensed clinical social workers that were in private practice or clinical practice at the time when I first started in the early 90s. And there was no one that I was aware of that had a group practice. And when I had the good fortune to open up KP counseling in 2001, um, at that time, I was the only clinical social worker in the Rockford area that had a group practice, which isn't to say that the individuals who had were in clinical practice prior to that, though they may not have had a group practice, they paved that way, which then made it easier or possible for me to do it in the early 2000s. There was a couple other things that she talked about that I think were stressed during the pandemic. Uh, was this idea of what do we actually have control over? In psychology, we talk about uh, external locus of control or internal locus of control. Where is the control? And the pandemic has taught us that there's a lot of things that we're not able to be in control of, regardless if it's decisions by the government or just the nature of a disease, or in this case, a virus. There's a lot of things that we were not able to control, similar to the weather. But what we do have control over is our response to it. This internal locus of control, our response to what circumstances we find ourselves in. She referred to that there was three main uh, aspects or elements of character in the center of control: courage, tenacity, and integrity. And I think courage being the first one, and I know for me, sometimes it takes courage to be self-disciplined enough to be able to do my self-care routines, or courageous enough to stand up uh, when we're being challenged by some outside force, or having the courage and the mindfulness to know that for me, uh, God is with me, and to be open to the direction that God wants me to move in my life. This idea of courage, because of the powerful impact of fear that can cause us, that in the midst of when we are afraid, then doubt will creep in and will cause me to go into my thinking. For me to be able to have the mindfulness, the groundedness, to bring myself back into that God space, and then have the courage to move forward where I'm being prompted. This idea of tenacity, or this determination to be able to continue to follow through when I'm tired, or when I'm not motivated, um, when I'm not feeling inspired. Recently, I had an opportunity, where I made an opportunity to be able to do some writing, and I wasn't able to get into a mindset of being motivated or inspired to do that writing. But I knew that if I didn't discipline myself and have the tenacity to just sit there and continue working at it and continue just putting something down, that I would give into procrastination and just avoid. I'm grateful that I was able to be tenacious enough in that setting that by the end of the 4 or 5 hour window of time, I was able to complete 3 different workshops. But 5 hours earlier, it definitely didn't seem like I was going to get anything done. And then the last one was this idea of integrity. Who are you when no one's watching? I know that I've talked about this before, but it's during those time periods when you are you're not being uh, watched by family, or by friends, or by clients, or by a boss. Are you the same person when they're not in the room, as if they are in the room? To be able to have the courage to be able to face those challenges of uh, the doubts that come up with imposter syndrome, to be able to be tenacious enough to, when not feeling strong or not feeling motivated, to push through anyways, and to strive toward being the same person when I'm in front of public, or when I'm just alone in my private life. I believe that these 3 elements are something that we can focus on, that we can put our energy into controlling those things in spite of whatever circumstances we have. As always, I appreciate you being here and listening, and being able to share this with someone that may benefit from it as well. Look forward to seeing you next week.